The Wisconsin Badgers and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad 2023 class. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you being in every day or making this part of your daily listening activity, whether you're commuting to work, doing yard work, whatever it is. Thank you for being here. Today's episode, we're talking about that 2023 talent class, the portal and the high school ranks. What happened to it? Why it's kind of helped put Wisconsin where it is right now, and what it tells you about coaching transitions and why you need stability. Let's talk about it. So, this actually stems from a conversation on the Discord. Big Tuna was re-ranking some of his 2024 prospects, and I was like, let me look at 2023. I'm going to rank my top 5 high school prospects, re-rank them in that class, right? I'm going to take a look. And then I was looking at the 2023 class, and I'm like, there's only like 5 guys left. And I knew that, but like when you see it on paper, it's stark. That class was a disaster. And no disrespect to a couple of players from that class that are still on this program. They're good players. And it's nothing personal to anybody. Like things just don't work out for a lot of reasons. This is not what this is about. It's not casting aspersions or blame, but that class was a disaster. And if you remember, that's the class that Luke Fickle came in on partway through the season. Paul Chryst had built it. Luke Fickle took it over. So there's some reasons for this. But even then, it's just when you look back at it, which we're gonna do, let's take a journey through it. It's pretty bad. So that 2023 class, the high school ranks. Here are the players left from that high school recruiting class only a couple years ago. You have Christian Alliegro, Tretch Kekahuna, Tucker Ashcraft, Jamal Howard, and Tyler Janzi. Excuse me. You have 5 people left. There's 5 people in that high school class still on this roster. Here are the players that left. You had Cole LaCrue, Justin Taylor, Jordan Mayer, Jace Arnold, AJ Tisdale, Nate White, rest in peace, Jonas Tacluna, Amari Snowden, James Duran, Braden Moore, a bunch of DBs, but also your quarterback, also a couple offensive linemen, right? An edge rusher and Jordan Mayer. There's our Meyer, sorry. There's a lot of it's a lot of pieces that you just didn't keep in the pipeline, that you couldn't keep in the pipeline, that you couldn't keep developing. And it's tough. It's tough because football more than almost any other sport. Baseball's similar to this with the minor leagues, but college football, it's a pipeline. It's a manufacturing facility, right? It is an assembly line, and those parts have to keep coming down the assembly line. And if they don't, the people further down that line, the coaches, the strength and conditioning department, all those people, they don't have anything to work with. And when you lose almost an entire group of high school players, you just miss an entire year of development. It's a couple years down the road when those players should be your redshirt sophomores. They should be your developmental pieces. They should be your core special teamers. They should be working into the two deep. And then the next year when they're juniors, they should be your starters. None of those guys are here anymore. And it just creates a need to then almost overcommit in the portal to fill some of those gaps, right? And this is where you get into that continually kind of trying to patch the boat thing where, and Luke Fickle's talked about it, Coach Fickle's talked about it. We want to build through high school and augment in the portal. And when you lose a class in high school, then you'll have to overcommit into the portal. You have to work harder to find not just augmentation pieces, but core pieces through the portal because you missed an entire recruiting class, essentially. Now, listen, there's still players on this roster. I mentioned Christian Alliegro. I think he has a chance to be a star. Tretch Kekahuna should be your starting slot this year. So there's 2 starters. Tucker Ashcraft is your starting tight end this year. So there's 3 starters. I like him still. I think he's a player that Badger fans have written off a little too early. I think he's a nice piece. And then you have Jamal Howard and Tyler Janzi, both depth pieces. Jamal Howard has, played better this spring and this summer. It sounds like he's starting to fight for that role a little bit more. Maybe he fits into that depth chart this year. Maybe not because of all the bodies they brought in, but certainly next year if he sticks around, he could be a big piece in that depth rotation. And Tyler Jancy, an inside linebacker, there's a lot of pieces there. I'm not sure where he fits in or not, but he's still on the roster. I like him. But 3 starters. and two that are I would say a little fringy, just in the sense that they haven't proven themselves in Trechke Kahuna and Tucker Ashcraft. That's not great. Should more have been expected? I think it's a fair question. Given that you're taking over a class late, should more have been expected? I think so. I think so. I understand that there are certainly challenges when you're taking over a recruiting class late in the game, but let's be fair here and let's be honest. You Luke Fickle was still recruiting that entire year at Cincinnati. A lot of the players he brought over from Cincinnati didn't work out. The guys like Jonas DeCluna and Braden Moore, so he doesn't get a full pass for not putting together a great 2023 class. I think it's harder. I think you can certainly look at it and say, yeah, I understand why it didn't happen, but you don't get a pass when you're making the type of salary he's making, and you get a coach at Wisconsin. You needed to get in here and probably flip a couple other guys, and you need to hit on more of the guys you brought over from Cincinnati. And certainly Paul Christ, I think, deserves some blame for that too. A lot of the players he brought in, you're looking at the guys like the AJ Tisdales, the Jace Arnolds. I like both those guys. Like Jace Arnold was on the show, super nice kid. None of those guys are really transferred to a higher level of football. I think maybe that class was already a little pedestrian, and then you have a coaching turnover in the middle of the season. You lose some momentum. You lose your recruiting staff. You lose your assistants. You replace them with Luke Fickle. Didn't have a lot of time. Listen, I get it. There's all these reasons for why this class wasn't very good, but ultimately, Luke Fickle also did not hit on a lot of the guys he brought over from Cincinnati. The Amari Snowdens, the Braden Moores, the Jonas DeClunas. Those weren't hits, and you can still see some of those issues with the depth in the program where they've had to go out to the portal more and more to try to fill in some of those spots. And if some of those spots had hit, I think you'd feel better about the depth in the secondary right now. There are a lot of secondary pieces in that class that this year would be really strong depth pieces in a cornerback room that's not very deep, especially with the loss of Xavier Lucas and the question marks around Nizer Forkreen. So, yeah, it was a disaster. Listen, there's no other way to put it. Where I'm going to be going back and looking at all of the recruiting classes from previous years. We're going to be regrading them, putting 4 stars and 3 stars on players. It's going to be a ton of fun. But I was just looking at this one, and it's a disaster. And there's no other way to put it. I do want to give a shout out to Storm Shadow 77 on the Discord. He's the Discord member of the day. Really good comments in the Discord. He's active over there. Definitely appreciate everything that he does. We're going to take a quick break here and go to the transfer portal that they brought in 23 and tell you that wasn't a lot better. And then we're going to grade this 2023 class and talk about what it means a little bit with coaching transitions and why it's so important to keep continuity. Again, big shout out to Storm Shadow 77 for all the things he does in the Discord. We're going to take a quick second for our friends of the show here, come back and talk about this transfer portal class and why it was a little better, but where they also completely misfired. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Gametime. Listen, Gametime is the number one source for all your ticket needs, whether you're trying to get to Camp Randall, whether you're trying to get to the Kohl Center, whatever you're trying to get there with Gametime. Get together with your friends, your family, the people in your lives. Let's go do more things in our lives. Let's have more fun. Let's see more things. Let's get to more events. And you can do all of those things on Gametime, a service that I've used personally. I've told this story before, but I was on the way to a baseball, watch the Braves. I don't know why I was going to say that so weirdly cryptic. I was on the way to watch the Braves, and my ticket fell through. That wasn't through Gametime, but I used Gametime to get the ticket I needed, and it was in my inbox before I pulled up to the stadium. It is incredible. Right now, take the stress out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create the account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute prices, last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed over at Gametime. All right, let's jump back into this. Let's talk about that transfer portal. Did the Badgers do any better in the transfer portal? And the answer is yes, a little bit, because the bar was so low in that high school portal that year that they almost had to. Excuse me. I'd also encourage, if anybody wants to join the Discord, I haven't put this up in a while. We have this great community. It's free. Come join the Discord. Lots of Badger discussion about anything that's going on. It's free. It's a community. It's great. Come join the Discord if you want to hang out and talk a little more Badgers or video games, sports, Packers, whatever it is. All right, let's take a look at this transfer portal class. Here's the class. Here's who I would consider hits. Nizer Forkrin, that's a definite hit. Whether you get him back or not this year. I think Nizer was your best corner last year. I think he was better than Rico. That's an absolute hit, no doubt about it. Will Pauling, absolute hit. I know that he didn't have the greatest year last year. I understand that. But the year prior, he's one of the best slot receivers in the Big Ten. And even last year, he still had a lot of really nice moments, was still a big part of this offense. This offense was broken around him. There's no world where you would consider Will Pauling not a hit. So there's 2 hits in the portal. Jake Renfro, again, an absolute hit. He's going to be your starting center this year. Your starting center last year provides a lot of leadership and toughness in that room. He hasn't been as good as we thought he would be. He was one of the crown jewels of that transfer class, if you remember. Coming over, he was an all AAC guy, obviously coming off an injury, but we expected kind of an impact player right away. And then he dealt with injuries. I felt like last year was knocking off the rust. Renfro's still an obvious hit, though. You're going to get 2 years of starting caliber center play in the Big Ten. Renfro, obvious hit. Jake Huber, what a hit. I said this in the Discord because we were talking about this topic a little bit. I don't know if there's a more underrated Badger in recent years than Jake Huber. Plays a ton of different positions, never gets hurt, a ton of snaps. He's a UDFA right now for the Vikings, I believe. So he's made it to the NFL just really off of versatility, toughness, and reliability. Not being hurt's a big deal. Being available is a big deal. Being able to play several different spots is a big deal. Huber was a massive hit out of that portal class and is really a guy we're going to miss this year because that's a player you could plug in at tackle, you could plug in at guard, you could plug in at center, and he was going to do all well enough that he wouldn't be a giant gaping hole. And that's a big deal. To be able to do a lot of things pretty decently is a big deal on the offensive line. They're going to miss Joe Huber this year. That's another hit. Y'all let me know if these are hits or not. I put these in the question. Questionable. Is this guy a hit? Bryson Green. I don't know. It feels like you just kind of got replacement level receiver play from a guy that you're expecting more from. But if you didn't get it from him, would it have been even worse? Like, is Bryson Green from that 2023 transfer portal, would you call him a hit? Let me know in the chat. I don't really know. You got a lot of reps from him, and he had a couple moments. He also missed time with injuries. I'm gonna put him in the I don't know, the kind of the category. Almost one of those things where would you have been better off if you had just kept one of the other Badger receivers that had left instead of going to get Bryson Green, a DK? Probably, right? Probably. So I don't know. I don't know about Bryson Green. Tanner Mordecai. Uh, People are very divided on Tanner Mordecai. Was he a hit? I would argue no. And I'm a guy who's pretty bullish on Tanner Mordecai and the skill set he brought in and the leadership. But you also brought him in to give you high level quarterback playing. And when he was healthy, he just wasn't able to do that. He was inconsistent. And some of that was Phil Longo, absolutely. And some of that was the offense, absolutely. Some of that was Tanner Mordecai just had some moments of struggle, and you brought him in, and there's an opportunity cost when you bring in a quarterback. It means you not pursuing another starting quarterback. So that was the guy, and the quarterback play that year wasn't good enough. Now, you can also say, go look at that LSU game. That was him with a healthy center. If you remember, somebody who could snap the ball, and he looked much better. Listen, I love the toughness that Mordecai had. I love the mobility that he had. Was he a hit in the portal? I don't know. I would tend to say no. Now, how much of that was Wisconsin and how much of that was Mordecai? That's a very fair question. Tanner Mordecai is still in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers. So that would tell you that the talent probably wasn't the issue there. It was probably everything around it, but it's still hard to call it a hit. They didn't get very good quarterback play. And then Nathaniel Vakos, is that a hit? I don't know. Like, he hasn't been consistent enough. So again, I would put that somewhere in the middle. And then you look at some of the misses, Michael Mack at corner, CJ Williams never lived up to the billing, which was the case at USC and at Wisconsin. I think he went over to Stanford now, which is a great spot for him. Really nice kid, by the way. I wish nothing but success for these people, these players, these student athletes. But we also got to be real. We got to call it what it is. There are hits and misses in recruiting. There are hits and misses in portal. There's hits and misses in life. There's hits and misses in the cereal aisle. Some of those things are bangers, and some of those just stay on the shelf the entire time. Quincy Burrows, not a hit. Great physical tools, incredible physical tools, but just could never get healthy, never developed a consistency, and was not gaining in the depth chart. Not a hit. Braden Locke, that's not a hit. I understand. Again, not the greatest situation, but the quarterback play was really poor. That's not a hit. Michael Varner, Darian Varner, the defensive end edge they got from Temple. never made an impact. Never made an impact. Petroyski, the linebacker, again, him playing gave you depth, it gave you time. Maybe you put him in the questionable category, but I don't know. I don't think he made an I think he was just a replacement level guy, and I don't consider that a hit in the portal if you're going out to try to get somebody that can make a difference on the team. I don't think he did. Jason Maitre, the cornerback, and then Nick Evers. Again, Nick Evers, that was a very big time pickup too, but off to UConn in a year, never really fully picked up the playbook. Again, how much of that was Longo? How much of that was Evers? How much of that was Wisconsin? I think all those things are connected. Like you're never going to be able to fully untangle those and say, yeah, it was all Nick Evers or it was all Phil Longo. No, of course not. It's all of them, but it's still a miss. So you go back and you look at that. We already talked about the high school group. We talked about the portal group. There's between the two of them, 9 players that you would consider hits are still on the roster, and there's a magnitude more that are gone and left. And you look at the roster now and what they've had to do in the portal, where they still have some depth issues. You can tie a lot of that directly to this. You just can't miss on an entire years worth of talent coming into the program. And that's not to diminish the players that are still here. When I say miss, it's obviously not everybody. There's still a Christian Alliegro and a Tucker Ashcraft, Renfro, Huber was great, 100%. And there were several other players that provided depth. But if this is what you get out of a class year to year, you're going to be a bottom feeder program. You just are. You need Barry Alvarez used to say the rule of thirds, and I think that's been beaten to death a little bit much. But it's probably a little too simplistic. But for those people who maybe don't remember that, Barry Alvarez, sorry, would say you need a third of your players in a class to be really good. Not necessarily stars, but like good players. A third to provide depth, and a third are going to wash out. Is how it's going to work. If you apply that to this class, you're going to be falling way short in both those top third categories. How many stars are in this class? How many NFL guys are in this class? How many guys that other teams have to game plan around are in this class? So, not to beat a dead horse, but it's important to look back and look at the last couple of years. There's been depth issues on this team. There's been talent issues on this team. Well, this is where it starts, right? Missing on a class 2 years past that point, you'll start to see depth issues. You'll start to see issues with the upper level talent. You'll start to see issues holding up in tougher games because you don't have the bodies because they're all gone or they didn't develop. So it is interesting looking back again. This was a tough class because there was a coaching transition in the middle of it, but nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Nobody cares. And you still got to land the talent. I do think 24 and 25 have been better. I'm going to re-rank those as well. Again, big thanks to Big Tuna over on the Discord for kind of sparking this idea in my brain. We're going to take one more quick second. We're going to come back. We're going to grade this group, grade the portal class, the high school class overall, and then talk a little bit more about the need for coaching consistency. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show. And as always, a quick second to say thank you for tuning in. Really do appreciate you. Okay, let's do grades first. How would you grade this class? I was tempted to do F, which I'm not an F guy. I'm not a guy who grades complete failure. What a disaster. So I'm gonna go D minus. I don't know how you can go higher than that. I don't know how when you look at the combination of the portal and the high school recruiting class, I don't know how you can go higher than a D minus D. You know, what metric would you use to go past that? Let's look at NFL guys. How many NFL guys are going to come from this group? I think Christian Alliegro can. Now, I also think, and I'm a guy who loves Christian Alliegro, I think the hype is maybe getting a little crazy on him. I really like him. I don't think he's a first round pick. I think he's a really good Big Ten inside linebacker, like really good. He's a stud. He can go sideline to sideline. I like him a lot. I think he's like we had some questions in a recent Badger community show, and I love the questions. This is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but there were some thoughts about comparing Alliegro and Tackett Curtis to some former Badger inside linebacker great duos, and I'm like, I don't think they're there yet. We have to see Alliegro play a full season and be impactful, and Tackett Curtis, we don't really know. I like the physical skill sets of both, but my point being, Tackett Curtis or Christian Alliegro is probably your best player out of this class, and I think he's probably like a third round pick type, which is really good, but not really good if that's all you're going to get out of a class. Who else in the NFL, right? Out of this group of people, Tanner Mordecai was a UDFA. Uh, Huber was at UDFA, so you're talking 3 NFL guys, but 2 of them are UDFAs. Could Will Pauling be an NFL guy? I don't think so. There's a lot of 5'10", 5'11" receivers out there that are probably a little more sure-handed than Will Pauling. Could Jake Renfro out of this group, as 2023 talent class, could he be an NFL guy? Maybe, but he's got to stay healthy. Teams are going to have questions about the injury history. And I think last year he was still knocking off some rust. I don't think he was great last year. So I don't know if he's an NFL guy. Nizer Forkring, I don't think he's going to run well enough. I love him, man. He's a great kid to talk to. Coaches love him. He's physical. I don't know if he's an NFL guy because I don't know how well he's going to run. Who else? Uh, Tucker Ashcraft. I don't know if he's going to have the physical skill set to do that. So my point is, you might end up with 1 draft pick out of this entire 2023 portal and high school rank. So if you look at it from that metric, I feel like it's got to be like a D minus, and that's just being real. And you're still going to get players out of it. I think the next 2 cycles have been better, but yeah, that's how I would grade it to start with. What does that say about continuity? So that's the other part of this. When I was really looking at this grouping and understanding, this is when Paul Chryst left and Coach Fickle came in, and a lot of people are already talking about we need to move on, or is Fickle on the hot seat? And this is where you just got to be really careful, because this is kind of what happens when you switch coaches a lot of times. Not all the time. People point to Indiana, Signetti coming in, but a lot of times when you switch coaches, you lose all those assistants, you lose your recruiting connections, you have a bad year in recruiting, and then that bad year in recruiting, it'll fester for a couple years, right? It's like a bad 2x4 in the wall, and it just affects your foundation. So then you're starting to rebuild, but you have that bad 2x4 in there, and that can just give out, and then suddenly you're looking for another coach, and then you're starting over again, and then you have another bad class or 2 as that new coach is ramping up. And this is what happened to Nebraska. This is what's happened to a lot of programs as they've cycled through coaches trying to find the right spot. Every time they cycle through, they lose all their momentum. They lose all their recruiting momentum. They have classes like the 2023 class that fans say, well, you got to build on your first couple classes. Well, you can't do that if you have classes like 2023 and then 3 years later you're already clamoring for a new coach. This is why you got to give Luke Fickell, and I'd say any coach, barring off field stuff, you got to give them 4 years, 5 years. You have to, because otherwise you're going to be consistently cycling through coaches that are going to be starting off with classes that don't lay the foundation for success years down the road, which is what this 2023 class is. Again, there's going to be good players that come out of it. There already are, but there's not enough of them. There's not enough of them. And that forces you then to try to fill more gaps in the portal. And we've already seen the portal hit rate, and that just compounds the issue. And then it affects chemistry. And then you need to play players in the 24 and 25 class earlier to cover up for issues in the 23 class. And it's just, it takes a couple years. It takes more effort to get over a bad recruiting class. That's why you can't miss in recruiting. You can't have bad years. You can have okay years. Not every year needs to be an incredible year. You can't have washout years because they impact the program for years to come. And you also have to keep coaching continuity. That's why I like this assistant group they brought in. I think there's continuity with these young coaching additions that Luke Fickell has made that can build into stronger recruiting departments. I think you've seen it with the job Kenny Guyton's done, Spalding's done, Reed is done, Blazek's done, Whitlow's done. They're building some recruiting momentum. They've done it in 24 and 25. Now, this class is a little tougher. And it's, again, just being honest. But man, that 23 class was bad. You guys let me know where you went with the grade on that 2023 class, combining the high school and the portal side. I'm going D minus. I don't know how else to say it. Also, let me know if you guys consider Bryson Green, Tanner Mordecai, Nathaniel Vacos hits in the portal. CJ Williams, is he hit in the portal? And also, one more quick shout out. Come join the Discord. Come talk Badgers with us. Support the show. It is a free community. It is awesome. Come join that. And a big shout out to our guy over at Storm Shadow for being the Discord member of the day on Wisconsin. A bunch more content coming up. Appreciate you guys so much. And we will definitely talk later.